What if we said that a country you usually associate with massive trade and prosperity is at the precipice of an irreversible tragedy? We're talking about China and its rapidly expanding deserts that might swallow up all of its fertile lands if something isn't done soon. Hello there, Green Panthers. Welcome to Nature Unraveled. Are you ready to learn why China is turning into a bone-dry desert? Hit that like button and please subscribe to explore more shocking natural phenomena with us. Let's dive in. Desertification has become a significant problem worldwide, and you've probably heard of areas in Europe facing issues with their agricultural land. Whether it's Saudi Arabia or Spain, countries around the world have been pulling out all the stops to deal with their shrinking arable land. But people don't usually associate China with this issue, especially since the government is so concerned about its image. The truth is, the situation is so extreme that officials had to issue warnings that if something wasn't done soon, the problem would become irreversible. So what's happening in the most highly populated country in the world? Well, the story starts with the Gobi Desert. It's the sixth largest desert in the world and covers an area of 1,295,000 kilometers squared, and a large part of it lies in China. But while a natural desert can be dealt with, the country's arable land has also started turning into dry wastelands. The word China usually conjures up images of skyscrapers and green plains, but the country has to support its vast population, which means agriculture is crucial. But imprudent planning and unsustainable techniques led to desert expansion, and with the Gobi Desert so close, it only increased the rate of desertification. Currently, over 24.7% of a Chinese land has experienced desertification, affecting 400 million people. So what caused this phenomenon? It started with the one problem the entire world is grappling with right now: climate change. As temperatures rise worldwide, every aspect of our life is affected. But no industry is struggling as much as the agricultural sector, as it's in the direct line of fire. Higher temperatures mean less rain, which means trouble for crops, especially those that require a lot of water. After all, not every area has high-end irrigation facilities. Then there's the soil. Less water means drier land, and as over-farming has already caused a strain on the minerals in farming land, it worsens when the wind blows the dry soil away. This is because the outer layer, known as topsoil, acts as protection and contains necessary organic matter. But while that wouldn't have caused an intractable problem, the erosion that follows makes things worse. Erosion can lead to dire effects, especially when it's on a large scale. When the soil has no plants, it becomes loose and gets blown away easily. And when it's dry because of a lack of water, the rate just increases. The soil loses its salts and minerals because of excessive erosion, sacrificing its arability in the process. But wait until you find out the other reasons desertification has been on the rise in China. Currently, around 1/4 of the country is covered in desert, and part of this land used to be suitable for farming. So what went wrong? For one, the Yangtze River Basin drought has caused extreme pressure on the country. With the river facing record low water levels in 2022, the rainfall has been as low as half the usual amount in many areas. As Asia's longest river, several areas in China are dependent on it for irrigation. But the low rainfall has also been an issue for rain-fed farmlands. Since there's also no news of transferring water to these places, it puts them at significant risk. This issue points to an inadequate irrigation system. Although China's system has been called one of the most comprehensive in the world, with over 690,070 kilometers squared of irrigated land, some areas are still left out. With the Yangtze River drying up, 2022 was a bad year for China. In August of 2022, government authorities announced that the autumn harvest was under quote-unquote severe threat and advised local authorities by saying that every unit of water be used carefully. But the local population is still struggling and the government is still scrambling to do something. What do you think is the worst problem that comes with increasing desertification? Of course, the loss of land is a significant issue, especially for a country that has to feed over 1.4 billion people. But the worst is that millions lose their livelihoods with the farmlands turning arid and unusable. The United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification described desertification as a silent, invisible crisis, and you can imagine why. The problems caused by the phenomena have displaced over 400 million people. Some of these people moved to surrounding villages and towns and cause a burden on the economy. Since they have nowhere to go, they can only wait for government authorities to help them. Other people leave the country, and nations that are partnered with the United Nations have been accommodating them. They have become known as climate refugees, as people suffering the direct consequences of climate change. While the term isn't an officially recognized group in international law at the moment, it may be soon. Areas worldwide have been predicted to become unsuitable for living in the coming years, and China is no different. The government has been working to accommodate its people, but it's simply not enough. Food shortages, water scarcity, and a lack of resources are driving people over the edge. Now, if you find this information interesting, please do pause this video to give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more valuable content. Also, press that notification button to get updated whenever we post a new video. Those who are still in the country's heavily populated cities are faced with another problem, and these are sandstorms. In early 2021, a heavy sandstorm hit China's capital, Beijing, but it didn't stop there. It spread all over central China, covering an area of 380 million hectares across 12 provinces. A sandstorm might not seem like a horrible occurrence, but one fueled by erosion, drought, and climate change has its own side effects. The sandstorm was the biggest to hit Beijing in over a decade, and The Guardian described the scene as saying it shrouded Beijing in a post-apocalyptic orange haze. This storm meant dire consequences for people's health, causing both external and internal damage. This is because it brings a massive amount of particulate matter, known as PM, with it, which can heavily impact the respiratory system. But what is the government doing in the face of this national emergency? Well, they've started several ambitious projects, such as trying to induce rain and reduce sandstorms. But their biggest one yet is the 3 North Shelter Forest Program, which aims to build the Great Green Wall. It was started in 1978, and the main goal is to stop the expansion of the Gobi Desert, which is taking 3,600 kilometers squared of land annually. The program received $8 billion in funding with a goal to plant around 88 million trees across the country and stop the desert from growing. This wall would stretch for over 4,800 kilometers. Now, to some extent, the endeavor has been successful. Over 7.8 million hectares of trees have been planted, and the tree cover increased from 12% to 18%, which has been lauded as a great effort by the government. But not everything went perfectly, with some drawbacks being pointed out by researchers. They argue that the trees planted may soak up a lot of groundwater, and there's also a lack of diversity. One example is when 1 billion polar trees were lost to a pest infection in Ningxia. This unfortunate event set back the project by 2 decades, which is why experts at the World Bank are advising China to focus on quality rather than quantity. Another reason people are skeptical of the Green Wall is that they aren't sure all these plantations are being maintained. Jennifer L. Turner, director of the China Environment Forum at the Woodrow Wilson Center, pointed out several trees are being planted in big ceremonies, but then later no one really takes care of them and they die. While the government has taken steps to rectify this problem, there's still a long way to go. But wait until you hear what China has done in the technological aspect. Research is one aspect that can't be ignored, and the government has funded many projects to solve its water scarcity. One breakthrough came from Chongqing University, where Professor Yi Jingzhan led a team to create a plant cellulose paste that could turn sand into soil. This helps it retain water, nutrients, and air. Yi called the process desert soilization, as it gave sand the eco-mechanical properties of soil. Research has shown that several plants can be grown, and his team has converted over 122 million square feet of desert into oases. His success paints a pleasant picture for China's future, as it could mean that they'll not only be able to stop the Gobi Desert from swallowing up all arable land, but they'll also be able to take some back. Thank you for taking this nature trip with us today. If you want to help us keep our tree hugger journey going, support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Until next time, stay curious.